Hello YouTubers, it's Big Buddha here. Welcome to Big Buddha is Watching. Yes, that's right, Big Buddha is watching. Those of you who watched my previous review of The King of Comedy, that is the only time I will be, those of you that watched my previous review, The King of Comedy, which is none of you as of now. Maybe that will change in the future, hopefully so. Yes, as of this video onwards, Big Buddha is Watching is the name of the channel. Big Brother is Watching is the actual quote from the Orwellian quote from 1984, so I thought best to use that. Big Buddha sees all is a misquote, I guess. I'm not sure quite where I got it from. Like I said, from this point on, Big Buddha is Watching is the name of the channel. I guess the King of Comedy review will be noteworthy for that point. Maybe not. Anyway, on with my review. Today I'm looking at Neill Blomkamp's 2000 and I've got notes. I've got the Wikipedia page here. Neill Blomkamp's 2015 film Chappie, which I saw on Netflix on Friday, and I thought I might as well review it. I'm not only going to be looking at films I know inside and out. I like to review whatever I've seen recently, and so I thought this is a good place to start as any. It's maybe a shorter review. We'll see. The King of Comedy review clocked in at something like 37 minutes and had to be cut in two, but we'll get onto that. Anyway, Chappie. Like I say, I watched it on Friday. How to describe Chappie? It's I've heard a lot of people describe it as Short Circuit meets RoboCop. I think that's slightly inaccurate. I'd say it's more Short Circuit 2 meets RoboCop. Short Circuit 2, if you remember, is, I guess, the more street version of Short Circuit. It's the one set in New York. Johnny Five gets taken in by a gang at one point. The Diego's, it's been a long time since I've seen Short Circuit 2. Diego's kick your ass, Diego's kick your face, Diego's kick your balls into outer space. You remember that one scene? That's pretty much the tone I think that Neill Blomkamp went for with Chappie. Brief summary of the plot. It's Johannesburg again. Neill Blomkamp is a South African filmmaker. His first film, District 9, which came out in 2009, was also set in Johannesburg, and that film, it was a very original film. And I really liked it because of that. I went in really not knowing a lot about it. Like I say, it was set in South Africa, not made on a huge budget. I thought going in that it was all going to be a mock documentary about aliens, sort of aliens who've come down to Earth, and because they had to leave their own planet and essentially got ghettoized and had to end up living in shanty towns, and it was kind of a social commentary on well, I guess the state of the global situation in the moment, immigration and what have you, and but it wasn't just a mock documentary. That was kind of sort of a way in. Like the first third of the film is just that, maybe even less than that, probably like the first quarter, and then it turns into a conventional Eye of God narrative, and he becomes many things, as a body horror sci-fi movie, and in the last act, a kind of badass action movie, kind of what I remember coming out and saying, well, that's what the Transformers movie should have been. With Chappie, so I really liked District 9. It was one of my favourite films of that year. His follow-up, Elysium, I was kind of disappointed in. I think there was potential there for a really cool classic sci-fi film, but he missed a few story beats with it, and I reread a review of Elysium the other day. It said that Jodie Foster's performance is off-putting. I really can't remember Jodie Foster's performance in it, so I can't really comment on that front. But I really like Jodie Foster, but I'd have to give that another watch to see if that was true. But there were elements that I did like in Elysium. I just felt that overall it didn't quite work. Chappie, I do feel it's his worst film so far. I'm sad to say, especially as he showed so much potential with District 9. I know District 9 was produced by Peter Jackson, and the visual effects were done by Weta, Jackson's special effects house, and they really show. I think Weta do some of the greatest visual effects around at the moment. They especially do the best mocap character effects at the moment. I mean, though the prawns in District 9, the aliens, they were all mocap, but I thought they looked pretty seamless. I was surprised actually with Chappie that the robots in Chappie weren't done by Weta, because if there's one plus point of Chappie, it is the visual effects again are pretty seamless. The robots are pretty believable. You believe they're interacting with the humans. You forget that they're visual effects almost. Anyway, to summarise the plot, basically you have Dev Patel, and he's sort of your stock standard movie techno-whiz nerd, and he's essentially designed robots that have replaced the police force in Johannesburg, and Johannesburg has now got an entirely automated police force. However, he's not done with his technological advances already, because at the start of the film he's developing the most sophisticated AI. He wants to produce a robot who can recognise art and think for itself. And of course, in one of these, one of many plot contrivances in this film, he starts off and he essentially invents the world's most advanced AI just because the plot needs it. I mean, it's. I guess it's a slightly more sophisticated storytelling than Short Circuit, where John number 5 gets struck by lightning, and that's how he develops intelligence. I think the idea with Short Circuit is Johnny Five is alive. We're not quite on that level, but in this science fiction age, the question of AI and whether robots and AI will essentially be sentient in the future is a pertinent science fiction question. So these days, it's the human character who has to invent the AI essentially. So you have Dev Patel, you have Sigourney Weaver who, as his boss. He takes the AI, tries to promote it to her, and she says, "No, we're not interested. We're only interested in arms," which is slightly unbelievable. That okay, you're only interested in creating an advanced police force, but someone is presenting to you the most advanced breakthrough in robotic technology that you've ever come across. You don't think this can somehow be utilized. He decides to take a battered robot, one that's been damaged in the line of combat, and it's had its battery welded to its chassis, so it will only have 5 days of battery life. Anyway, and he decides to use this robot as the prototype for his AI. In the meantime, there's a gang who are populated by 3 members. Let's get their names right. So it's they're part of the South African hip hop group D Antwerp, and 2 of them played by Ninja, who plays essentially a version of himself, and Yolandi Visser, and the other one is Jose Pablo Cantillo, who plays America, who I believe is not a part of D Antwerp. They're essentially criminals, and they want a robot for themselves. So they kidnap Dev Patel, and no, they don't want one for themselves. They think they want a device to turn off all the police robots, and they think Dev Patel will have this device. So they kidnap him. He just happens to have Chappie on him, and he's about to boot him up, and so they change of plan. They want Chappie for themselves, and to do their own bidding, pull off heists, and they get Dev Patel to create Chappie for them. Now the problems with this film. One, I was reading up on it. Apparently, Neill Blomkamp and his writing partner, who's his partner in real life, Terry Tatchell, they wrote this. They both wrote District 9. They wrote this film, they say, in a fortnight whilst making Elysium, and boy does it show. This is a script that just needed more work on it. To write a film in a fortnight, I mean, it can be done. Rocky was written in far less time than that, but to write a film in a fortnight whilst you're in production on another film, I don't know how much care you can layer it into a script if you only work on it for a fortnight. Especially whilst it, if I truly believe if a script fails, your whole film fails. I mean, there's never been a good film made from a bad script. and this is a bad script. The characters are they're just unlikable. A lot of the characters, especially the gang in the film. I mean, they're meant to. You're never sure if they're meant to be protagonists or antagonists, because they are thoroughly unlikable, and so therefore you don't really end up caring about them. Dev Patel, I mean, he's serviceable in the role. You know, I think he can be good, Dev Patel, but an actor's only as good as the material he's given. He's not really given much here. Sigourney Weaver is the like I say, she's his boss. Again, I really like Sigourney Weaver, but she gives one of the most constipated performances of her career. It's it's a very you can kind of tell that in making it she was she just looks frustrated the whole time. I know Blomkamp wanted to go on and make Alien 5 after this, or what would have been Alien 5, and his concept was a follow-on from Aliens, I guess set in a parallel world where Hicks and Newt didn't die at the start of Alien 3. A good concept, but well, I mean, it would have been a good concept if they'd have done it in 1991, but I don't know if I really want to see a 60-year-old Ripley and a 60-year-old Hicks and an adult Newt running around. I know Alien Covenant isn't out yet. Whether that will be any good or not, I wasn't overly impressed with Prometheus either. Whether this will make up for it, I've seen the first 2 minutes, and it seemed like a lot of sort of papering over the cracks of Prometheus just to be able to get into a sort of bog standard Alien movie. So whether Scott will get bogged down in his own mythos like he did in Prometheus again, or and whether the mythos that he's trying to create will distract from just telling a coherent story remains to be seen. But I'm not here to talk about Aliens. That's for another video. What else? Oh, Hugh Jackman is in this film, and Sharlto Copley's in this film. Now, Sharlto Copley was the main star of District 9. That was kind of his breakthrough role. Again, an actor I really like. I really liked him in that. He had a very unique. So it was sort of an out of nowhere performance, and very much enjoyed him in that. He was in Elysium as well as the bad guy. Interestingly enough, because I didn't realise that he played Chappie in this, and when I saw Hugh Jackman and what he was doing, I thought, well, this is the Sharlto Copley role. Why? I mean, I can understand him not wanting to play that character again, because he was he was the villain in Elysium, and he was, although he was the central and protagonist in District 9, he was a major douchebag in that. So I can understand him not wanting to play the douchebaggy character again, but Hugh Jackman was perfectly fine for what the role demanded. I mean, if there's one, I say one gripe, there's lots of gripes of this film. One of them was that's the fact that the three main stars of this film, you have an Englishman an Australian and an American as your three main leads, and for a film set in South Africa, and well, that's if you discount Sharlto Copley, and I think that must feel like a great disservice to the South Africans watching this film. They must feel like, well, why can't we have South African actors playing these roles? I guess this one was funded by Hollywood, and to get a bigger budget, they said no, you've got to stick bigger names in this. But I know if there was a British film that came out, I know a lot of British films have Americans in, but if you had one where the three main leads were Americans or Americans and Australians or whatever, and not British talent, it would feel disingenuous, and there's never any attempt to explain the backstory of these characters, why they're all living in Johannesburg and working there. But there you go. The Hugh Jackman sports, I'd say, an impressive mullet in this, but the more impressive mullets have to go to the members of D Antwerp. I don't know if that's their look in real life. I don't know. This film does feel very 80s. It's I don't know I imagine it's an intentional hark back to the 80s. But I mean, do we really need the worst elements of the 80s coming back, i.e., the mullet? I think that's just representative of I mean, everything from the 80s has been recycled now, and it's getting so boring. And when you're just recycling stuff, for anything from the 80s, you've got to draw a line somewhere and say, no, like nostalgia can only take you so far. Let's make films about now. Let's stop recycling the past. Sharlto Copley as Chappie. Now, I wish he just played. They just played it a bit more safe, and they had cast him in the Hugh Jackman role, because I've heard some critics have compared him to the character of Chappie to Jar Jar Binks. It's not that bad, but it's getting there. I'm sad to say. It's probably not entirely Sharlto Copley's fault. The idea with Chappie is he's an innocent. You essentially see him born and go through childhood and adolescence in the film. And I guess the subtext of the film is it's about family and a sort of I guess a 21st century sort of slightly warped version of a family, and nature versus nurture, and disparate parents. The Dev Patel character wants to teach Chappie about morals, and wants to educate him and teach him to paint, but he's thrown out by the gangster characters, and they just want to lead him astray and get him in trouble, taking carjacking, bullying him up, graffiti him. Another nod to Short Circuit 2, that cinematic masterpiece that we've all filmmakers must emulate. And so as a result of that, Chappie sort of learns all his mannerisms from the douchebag characters in the film, the Antwerp, and that therein lies the problem, in that when you've got a sort of childlike figure emulating unlikable characters, the character itself comes across as unlikable, sadly. And you get this real sort of disparity of tone, because on the one hand it's going for a sort of R-rated action movie vibe, but then on the other hand you get Chappie who feels like Johnny Five, and he's trying to. It seems like he's almost trying to appeal to kids, coming out with misinterpreting situations for comic effect, and say using gangster slang, and so tonally it's kind of difficult to see what they were trying to go for. What else was it I'm going to say? So there we go. 25 minutes. That's my sort of brief review of Chappie. I'm sure there were a few other points that I wanted to make, but generally, sort of overall, a little disappointing, especially considering the promise that Blomkamp shown in his debut feature. I hope, as a filmmaker, he does pull something better out of the bag in the future. I hope he doesn't go the way of Richard Kelly. Richard Kelly, the director of Donnie Darko. I mean, there was an example of a blinding first feature and two disappointing follow-ups, the difficult second album and third album syndrome. So there we go. Star rating, it's 2 out of 5. I'm afraid. I'm on the verge of remembering the other point I was going to make about this film. It's gonna bug me. It's gonna come to me when after I press the off button. There you go. That's my review of Chappie. Just a brief talk now about where we are with this channel. Like I said, this is review number 2. I've left this sort of preamble to the end of the video. So if you only switched on to find my thoughts on Chappie, then that's everything I wanted to say about it. Having watched back the previous video, I was happy with the picture and audio quality when it was all uploaded, so that's a load off my mind. The only thing I'm gonna have to try and improve from now on is my presenting style, which I was not happy with at all. I think to be honest, I'm hearing myself in my head as I talk now, and I'm coming up with the same faults as last time. Noticeably, you'll notice between every single sentence. I want these videos to be able to be watched, but also serve as a kind of podcast. They're designed to be listened to if you so desire on your headphones. You don't necessarily have to watch the visual element as well, and why would you? It's my head waffling on. So if my ers and ahs are really annoying you, it is something I'm going to try and iron out in future reviews. They were all through that review, I know, I heard them, but we'll see how we go. I think that's everything. So yeah, there we go. Review number 2 down. This is me, Big Buddha, signing off.